Social sobre a iniciativa do Ministério do Trabalho, Solidariedade e Segurança Social e organizado pela Cooperativa António Sérgio para a Economia Social e pelo município de Cascais. Para a abertura formal da conferência, tem a palavra o Sr. Presidente da Câmara Municipal de Cascais, Carlos Carreiras.
Senhora Ministra do Trabalho, Solidariedade e Segurança Social, doutora Ana Mendes Godinho, minhas senhoras e meus senhores, permitam-me que na sessão de abertura desta conferência comece por endereçar uma calorosa saudação de boas-vindas a todas as instituições e a todos os trabalhadores e a todos os empreendedores de todos os setores que compõem a economia social. Eles são a razão de estarmos aqui, eles são a garantia de que podemos estar aqui à altura do desafio do nosso tempo, construir um futuro melhor no pós-pandemia. Que a proximidade do Atlântico que temos neste magnífico local, o Palácio da Cidadela, nos inspire a eles a continuar a inovar e a encontrar novas respostas sociais para os problemas
responses
do maior número,
to the problems and issues
a nós, políticos, a continuar a
that drives
reforçar a
us politicians
centralidade
forward
de uma economia com mais
and
valores,
to
com mais
push
solidariedade,
for an economy
com
with
mais
more
capacidade
values,
de
more solidarity, that is
Permitam-me
more
também uma palavra
inclusive.
especial para o Sr. Presidente
Allow me
da
to
CAS
address
e para os meus
a
colegas
special word
presidentes de Câmara de
to the
Braga,
chairman
de
of CAS
Coimbra, de
and to
Sintra
the
e de
mayors
Torres
of
Vedras,
Braga,
com
Sintra,
quem Cascais partilha
Torres Vedras,
orgulhosamente o título
with
de
whom
Capital Europeia da Economia
Cascais
Social.
shares the
Por fim, agradecer à
capital
Sra. Ministra
of
mais uma visita a
the
Cascais,
European capital
dizendo
of
que é
social
sempre com o
economy.
maior gosto que a recebemos no nosso Conselho. E
Again,
aproveito
let me
esta
tell the minister
oportunidade para,
that it's
através
always
da
a
Sra.
pleasure to
Ministra,
welcome her
felicitar
here,
o Governo português pelos resultados alcançados durante a presidência
and
do Conselho.
let us congratulate her on the results of the Portuguese presidency of the Council.
Aos comandos da presidência
Portugal
da União Europeia.
spearheaded
Isso não
the
deixa de
presidency of the
constituir
European
para todos, e
Union,
em
and it
particular
was a
para um
triumph.
social-democrata como eu,
For a social
motivo de
democrat like
regozijo.
myself, this is a
Aliás,
moment,
esta reunião
a
vem
moment
ainda
of
na
joy.
sequência desse
This
trabalho do
meeting
governo português,
is
que,
the
assim
sequence
espero,
of
deixará
all
marcas
the
duradouras na
work
Europa e
that
no
Portugal
país.
has made that
Estamos
will
num momento
leave a
extraordinariamente
lasting mark in
desafiante.
Portugal
A
and in
pandemia
Europe.
obrigou-nos a todos a pensar
This
sobre o que é que
pandemic
andamos por aqui a
made us
fazer.
reflect on
E além
what
disso,
on
já as
earth we're
questões
doing
das
here.
alterações climáticas, a desigualdade
There's also
extrema
the
e os esqueletos que
issue
descobrimos no
of
armário do
climate
capitalismo
change
pós-crise
and the hidden
financeira
skeletons
de
of
2008
capitalism
tinham
after the
obrigado muitas
2008
empresas,
crisis,
muitos governos
and this made
a
many
repensar o seu
governments,
modo.
many companies
O
rethink
crescimento do setor
their
social nos
way of
últimos
life.
anos tem muito a ver com a redefinição do papel do
The
Estado
growth
e
of
com
the
a
social
centralidade da ideia de mercado
aspects
perante
in
os
the past few
acontecimentos
years
como aqueles que acima enumerei.
has been directly connected to
Como
the
vivemos num mundo de
role of the
hiperligações de
state.
comunicação, de modas e de comunicação
We live in a very
instantânea,
connected
quero
world.
sublinhar que os fundamentos da
Communication
economia
is
social são
instantaneous,
fortes e
and
nada têm de passageiro.
we have to have
A economia
the
social na
changes
Europa
for
conta
social economy
8% do emprego
is
e
here to
10%
stay.
do universo
It
de
accounts
empresas ou
for
instituições,
10% of
mais
employment,
em cada 4
and
cidadãos
1
europeus
in 4
tem
European
ligação a uma
citizens
empresa ou instituição do setor social.
are linked to a
E mesmo em
company or
Portugal,
a
as
body
IPSS
of the social
sozinhas
sector.
contribuem
In
para
Portugal,
4% do
IPSSs
PIB e empregam
alone
cerca de 250 mil pessoas.
employ
Este número são a
approximately
prova da
250,000
centralidade desta
people
nova
and
economia como
correspond
instrumento de
to
coesão social,
4% of
de
the
luta contra a
GDP.
exclusão, de
We
inovação
plan to
social e de
fight
promoção
exclusion
de uma ideia
and
de uma
promote
sociedade mais
an
justa
idea
e
for a
mais
fair
sustentável.
society and more sustainable
Talvez o que
society.
esteja aqui em causa,
Maybe
depois
what's
de anos em que o
at stake
capitalismo
here,
sem regras
after years of
foi adorado e
unbridled
glorificado,
capitalism
é
that
o
was
regresso a uma certa
glorified,
ideia
what
original
we
de
want is to go
comunidade,
back to basics,
como
to an idea of
ecossistema em
community
que todos
with an
dependemos de
ecosystem
todos.
where everyone
Em
depends
como
on
dizia o
everyone.
filósofo, nenhum homem ou empresa
As the
é uma
philosopher
ilha
said,
e ninguém se
no
basta a
man
si
is an
mesmo,
island and
independentemente
no
dos
man can
lucros que
stand
tenha.
alone and no company can
Que não
stand
haja
alone regardless
confusão.
of their
Foi a
profits.
moderna economia de
Let us be
mercado
clear, it was the modern
responsável
market
pelo maior
economy that
progresso
was
de povos e
responsible for
nações,
the
tirando milhões
greatest
da
progress
pobreza
of
em todo o
people and
mundo
nations,
a um ritmo nunca
driving
antes
people
visto.
out of
E esse
poverty at
mérito
a
não é atacável.
heretofore
Todavia, a nossa
unseen
consciência
rate,
de hoje
and
pede
that we
mais.
cannot
Como
attack.
cidadãos de democracias maduras,
But we want
é-nos
more as
exigida uma
citizens
reflexão
in
sobre
mature
lições e
economies.
os
We
erros
need to
do passado.
reflect on the
Não
mistakes of the
podemos
past.
fingir que não sabemos,
We
que
cannot
não
pretend that
ou
we
lemos
know
sobre
nothing,
as
that we didn't
consequências da
see, we
ganância
didn't
desenfreada,
know
sobre
about
a
it,
falta de
about
controle
the
e
consequences of
princípios
unbridled
éticos na nossa
greed,
vida económica.
that we need to
Nossa
include
capacidade de
ethical
emergir
principles
desta
in our
crise
economic
pandémica
life.
vai depender muito da economia
What we
que
do after the
construirmos a
pandemic
seguir.
depends on what
questão
kind
é
of
mesmo
economy
essa.
we build. And
Não
that's
está
the
em
main
causa
issue.
apenas
What's at
reconstruir e
stake,
voltar
it's
à
not just
realidade
rebuilding and
pré-2020.
going back to
Exige
what
todos
economy
nós
and life was
saibamos
before
reerguer uma nova
2020.
economia,
We need
uma
to
economia
build
melhor
a
e mais
new economy, a
sustentável,
more
que
sustainable,
salve o
a better
capitalismo e a
economy
economia de
to
mercado dos
save
seus males.
Capitalism and
Essa
market
reforma do
economy from
capitalismo
its own
está em curso em
ills.
vários pontos do mundo.
This is
Na
ongoing
Europa e
in
também no
several
mais
places
improvável dos
in
lugares.
Europe and in
Se
the
falar de
most
reforma do capitalismo,
improbable
Estados
place
Unidos da América,
to talk about the
onde
reform
cerca
of
de 180
capitalism, the
CEOs
USA,
das maiores
where about
empresas
180
cotadas
CEOs
americanas têm encetado esforços para redesenhar
of
o
the
propósito
Fortune
da empresa.
500 companies
O foco destes empresários
have
está menos no lucro e cada
have
vez
been the
mais no
drive for this.
trabalhador,
They're focusing
nos
on workers
stakeholders
more
e nas
than
comunidades. É uma mudança
profit. They're
radical.
focusing on
Mas
communities
as
and
empresas
stakeholders.
perceberam que este é o
But the
único
companies have
caminho para
realized
ser
that this is
sustentável
the
no
only
longo
route.
prazo.
This is the only
O
way we
caminho
can be
de maior
sustainable in the
harmonia
long
entre todos
run.
os agentes
There
económicos.
must be
Caminho de
harmony
maior
between all
cooperação e,
agents.
sobretudo, de maior
We need to
humanidade
cooperate.
e
We
dignidade para todos.
must show more
As
humanity and
modernas
focus on the
democracias
dignity for
liberais
all.
e a cada um
The
de nós,
modern
cidadãos, exige por isso uma luta
democracies
sem tréguas
demand
contra a desigualdade, contra a
us to
iniquidade,
fight against
contra a exploração
inequality,
desenfreada dos
iniquity,
recursos
against the
das pessoas.
exploitation of resources
Uma
and
luta
people.
que há muito vem tendo resposta por parte dos agentes da economia social.
This has been a struggle long fought by the agents of social economy. We need to cooperate instead of compete. The invisible hand must be replaced by
mostrando ao mundo
closer, clasped hands, visible and full of solidarity.
Ficaremos pior se for cada por si.
If it's every man for himself, we'll be worse off. If it's everyone for everyone else, we'll be better off. We wish you a great day of work and that this place before the Atlantic may inspire us to overcome our struggles. So be welcome. Welcome to Cascais, our house, your house, the headquarters of social economy in Portugal and Europe. Thank you.
Tem a palavra Sua Excelência, a Ministra do
Now the
Trabalho,
floor
Solidariedade
for
e Segurança Social,
the
Ana Mendes
Minister
Godinho.
of Labor, Solidarity and Social Security, Ana Mendes Godinho.
Muito bom dia a todos.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Nicholas Schmidt. Bom dia, Sr. Presidente. Muito obrigada pelo
Good morning,
acolhimento e pela sua inspiração.
Mayor.
E também
Thank
pela
you for
inspiração
welcoming us.
da terra
Thank you for
que
your
nos acolhe,
inspiration.
com este
And I
enquadramento
feel
atlântico
inspired
que sempre nos inspirou
by
ao longo da
this
história
place
e que
with
certamente
this
nos vai
view to the
continuar
Atlantic.
a
This has
inspirar.
been important
Eu
in our
queria,
history, and
antes
I'm
de
sure it
mais,
will inspire us further as we
aqui, de alguma
progress.
forma, uma homenagem ao
I'd like to
Rogério
pay
Cação,
tribute to Rogério
homem
Cação,
extraordinário
an
da
amazing
economia
man
social, que nos
in
deixou
social
na semana
economy.
passada, mas que
He
certamente a sua
departed this world
inspiração
last
permanente
week,
não nos irá deixar
but
nunca.
I'm sure
E eu pedia,
his
em
inspiration will
nome
never
também
leave us.
aqui de todos, do
And on
Rogério
behalf
Cação,
of everyone
minuto de
and
silêncio
Rogério
em sua
Cação,
homenagem.
I'd like to ask for a moment's silence in his honor.
Muito obrigada a todos e que, de facto, os valores do Rogério
Thank you,
Cação nos
everyone.
inspirem sempre ao longo
And we
destas
hope the
nossas
values of
missões
Rogério Cação
coletivas que temos pela
may
frente.
inspire us
Sr.
in
Comissário
all our
Nicholas
collective
Schmidt, Sr.
endeavors.
Presidente da
Mr.
Câmara,
Commissioner,
Caro
Mr.
Presidente da
Mayor,
CASES, caro
Mr.
Eduardo
President
Graça, Sr.
of
Secretário de
CAS,
Gabriel
Mr.
Bastos, a
Secretary of
todos
State,
cumprimento e agradeço, aliás, a vossa
I
mobilização
greet
e
you
a vossa
all and
presença
thank you for being
neste que é
here
também um momento crucial para
in
todos
this
nós.
crucial moment for all
Começaria
of
por
us.
dizer que, de facto, Portugal, e como
I'd
o Sr.
like
Presidente da
to
Câmara
start out by
antecipou,
saying that,
Portugal
like
procurou,
Mr.
durante a
Mayor said, Portugal
presidência
tried during its
europeia do Conselho,
presidency
colocar
of the European
a
Union.
dimensão
We
social
tried to
e o
place
modelo
the social
europeu
dimension and the
social da Europa
European social
como a
model
base e
as
o centro das
the
nossas
foundation
prioridades no
and
momento
the
que
hub
vivemos. Vivemos momentos
for our
críticos,
concerns.
claramente
These
aqui
are
a pandemia
critical
nos abanou a
times.
todos,
This
passámos
pandemic
todos
has
por um
shaken us
terremoto ou um
all.
maremoto
This has been an earthquake or
nestas circunstâncias
a
que temos
tsunami
vivido e em que claramente
that
também
affected our
são
lives.
momentos de
And
reafirmação
these are
da
moments
importância da
to
dimensão social como o pilar
reinstate the
estratégico
social
que nos
dimension as
deve
a
unir,
strategic
não
pillar
só a
that
nível
should bind
nacional,
us
mas a
all,
nível também
not just
do modelo
internally,
europeu
domestically, but
e
also when I
daquilo que
talk
nós
about the
procuramos para o nosso
European model
futuro comum.
and
Por
when
isso
we
também
think
é tão
about what we
importante
want
estarmos
for
aqui
our
hoje
joint
reunidos
future.
e esta foi também
This is
mais uma
why it's so
iniciativa
important to be here
no
together
âmbito
with you
deste
in
ano em
this
que assumimos a
initiative.
presidência, mas também a presidência do Comitê da
We had the
monitorização da Declaração
presidency
de
of the European
Luxemburgo, em que Portugal
Union, but we
assume
also
também a
spearhead now. We're
presidência
also
e em que
at the
quisemos
chair of the
colocar
meeting
também a
of
economia
the
social
monitoring
aqui
committee of the
como
Luxembourg Declaration,
pilar-chave
and we wanted to
desta
say
nossa
that this is a key
resposta e
pillar
do momento que
for our
vivemos. Também por
response
isso
and for this
será
moment.
importante o plano de ação que a
This is
Comissão está
why
a
the action
preparar
plan
para a
that's being
economia social
prepared
e que
by
será
the Commission
apresentado,
for
à semelhança,
Social
aliás,
Economy is so
do que foi
important.
apresentado
This will
durante a
be
nossa presidência do plano de
published
ação do Pilar Europeu dos
soon
Direitos Sociais,
enough.
procurando transformar também aqueles que são os
I mean, we want to
princípios
turn
que nos
the
movem em ações
principles that
concretas,
move
com
us into
metas
concrete
e com
actions with
objetivos para
targets and
atingirmos do
goals
ponto de vista coletivo,
to be
mas também
met
depois mobilizando os
collectively.
instrumentos que sejam
But
precisos
we
para o
also
fazer,
want to
nomeadamente
resort to
instrumentos
the
financeiros
mechanisms
para
we have and
concretizarmos
financial
estas
instruments in order to
nossas ambições.
make all
Também
these
será,
ambitions come
e
true.
agradeço e dou os parabéns
I
pela
would
declaração de
also
Cascais que hoje será aqui assinada, precisamente
the
colocando a economia social
Cascais
aqui
Declaration
como um
that
instrumento
places the social economy
fundamental no momento
as
que
a
vivemos.
key instrument in
Vivemos
this time.
momentos críticos, seja de
These are
resposta à
critical
pandemia,
moments for us,
seja, aliás, como disse o Sr. Presidente da
whether
Câmara,
we're talking about
seja
the
momentos
response to
também
the
de
pandemic,
transformação, porque
whether
estes
we're
são
talking
também momentos
about
de viragem
transformative
e
moments.
de
This is
tirarmos
a
as
turning
consequências
point,
daquilo que ficou evidente do ponto de vista das vulnerabilidades e
and
das
this
fragilidades do
has
nosso
shown us
modelo
to be fragile and
económico e social
vulnerable, and
e
the
aproveitarmos
whole
também este momento para
social
construir
model
e
is
fazer
vulnerable,
muito
so
melhor do que
we
fazíamos
took
antes,
this
não é
opportunity
reconstruir,
to
é fazer
rebuild,
muito melhor
to
do
do
que
things
fazíamos
better
antes.
than we did
E
before.
neste momento
And
em
right
que é
now,
evidente a dupla
in this
transição
moment, there's been
ambiental
a double
e
transition,
digital
both
parecia
digital
vir a
transition and
acontecer
an
durante
environmental
um
transition.
futuro mais ou menos longínquo, tornou-se
This
evidente
seemed
como neste momento
like it
estas
was going to
transições
happen
são,
far, far away in
estão
the
já
future, but no, it's
bastante
ongoing.
presentes na nossa vida
And this
e
has
temos
been
mesmo que
present.
acelerar
These
as
changes are
mudanças que
present
temos
in our
que
life, and
fazer.
we must
Aquilo que
put our foot on
assumimos
the
durante a
gas.
nossa presidência e durante a nossa
What
presidência
we did during our
tivemos na Cimeira
presidency,
Social
and we
no
had
Porto
the
pela primeira vez
social
um
summit
compromisso
in
histórico
Porto,
em que
and
tivemos
we
os parceiros
committed
sociais
historically
europeus,
where we
a
joined
sociedade
the
civil
European social
europeia
partners,
e as instituições europeias
civil
e os
society
Estados-membros a
and
assumirem
the member
compromissos escritos
states
no mesmo
and the
palco
institutions to
de
take on
terem,
written
de
commitments
colocarem a dimensão social e o pilar
to put the
europeu dos
social
direitos
dimension
sociais
and
na
the
base desta
European
dupla
pillar of
transição
social
ambiental e
rights
digital, para que seja uma
included
transição, acima de
in
tudo,
all
uma
these
transição
transitions
justa,
because we
em que
want this
claramente aqui a
transition to be
dimensão
a fair
social está em
transition.
primeiro lugar e que deve ser ela também
The social
aquela que é
dimension
a
comes
espinha
first and must
dorsal
come first, and this will be
destes
the
momentos de
backbone
recuperação.
to all
E a
our
economia
moments of
social
recovery.
assume
And
aqui,
social
neste
economy
momento
takes on
desta transição ambiental,
this
diria
moment
eu,
of the
assume
environmental
aqui
transition. It takes on
o verdadeiro papel de impulsionador dos R's.
the
Falamos muito
role
dos R's
of
na
the
transição
driver for the
ambiental, e eu acho
R's.
que a verdadeira autora e
And I think
mobilizadora destes
the
R's
true
é a economia social.
driver for these R's is social economy. And these R's,
que não nos podemos esquecer, representa cerca de 6% do emprego em Portugal.
we must not forget that social economy represents 6% of the economy in Portugal. So it's very, very relevant when it comes to creating employment.
Que estes 3 R's
It has been
são
shown
por
that the
si,
3 R's
assumidos na íntegra. Desde o
are
primeiro lugar,
part of social
foi a
economy.
economia social que conseguiu dar resposta.
Because social
Conseguiu dar uma
economy
resposta
provided a
de
response,
a quem precisava, onde precisava, quando
a proximity
graças
response,
à sua grande capilaridade e graças à sua
because
mobilização que não se move através de
it has great outreach and because
capitalistas,
it's
mas
not
através
moved
de
by
fins
capitalism.
societários de resposta à
It's
comunidade. E quando a
moved,
comunidade precisou,
its driver
foi a
is
economia social que respondeu
common
numa
goals of
grande
society.
articulação, aliás, com o
So
Estado.
we've We've been making a
o Estado de
close link
Portugal concretizado através das suas dos seus vários braços, respondeu
through its many arms. So the social state gave a response whenever it was necessary and whenever the traditional market could not or did not. We saw that in municipalities, institutions of social economy, and in all the dimensions of the social state. And I'd like to name the Ministry of Labor, Solidarity and Social Security. Several bodies of this ministry created channels to provide answers in the social sector in Portugal. And this is a virtuous partnership between state and society to respond to the needs of society by resorting to joint goals of... This is a common response that never goes away.
A economia social mostrou a sua enorme capacidade de resiliência.
Social economy has also shown to be very resilient. The economy, the market had to come to a halt for health reasons, and that's when social economy stepped up and maintained employment. And I'd like to quote Program Mares, that aim to provide a response, an outreach response to the communities, and they managed to create 20,400 employment jobs to help people mobilize and to use the values of service to the community and the values of mission to be at the forefront of their actions. Lastly, I'd like to say that social economy is an instrument of rebirth. It's another R, rebirth. We need to look upon what we did previously, how our social and economic responses were not as good as we hoped, and now we need to change what needs to be changed with the financial instruments that we have. This is a unique moment for mobilization. Whether it's PT 2030 or other things, we need to speed up, accelerate, and social economy is the key driver that can help us launch these many aspects of these many abilities that we have. We're trying to help children, older people. We need to inverse the course of poverty. Also, when we're talking about the instrument for the creation of jobs and the promotion of true inclusion of the society, this must work for everyone and not just a few. And we must also focus on cooperation. And these are the values that Rogério Cação gave us all. And about a month ago, I visited a school with him to launch a program, an outreach program with schools that promotes some values and to explain what the value of cooperation is. And this means alone we are nothing. Only by working together and by aligning our efforts and aligning our resources all together can we bring this ship into port. Because if there's a hole in the boat, it's not people close to the hole that are affected, it's everyone who's on board. So we need to look upon the life and the actions of Rogério Cação and take inspiration and to think about the rebirth, because we have an additional social legitimacy to make things in a different way, to make things better. And we must remember that Portugal is a country for everyone, and only by working together can we make Portugal a better country. So thank you.
As cidades e a economia social,
the cities and social economy and the offices of creating employment is a theme that brings António Sérgio of CASES, Mr. Eduardo Graça. Good morning to all of you, Madam Minister, Mr. Secretary of State, and the Mayor of the Municipality of Cascais, and Commissioner Nicholas Schmidt, representatives of governments who are following this session. Dear Mr. President of INE, who is also following this session at distance, and President of Inovação Social, President of CASES, who's also accompanying here, dear representatives of entities, foreign entities, for example, the Subdirector of Social Economy of Spain, who is also here with us, who is also our counterpart and our counterpart of Toledo, who in the ceremony that took place last year, dear members, dear representatives of the social economy, who are also here with us, and particularly at distance, remotely. I'm here let us say, in a hybrid position, because I'm a president of the cooperative António Sérgio, and here I am going to speak to you on certain issues that have to do with the European Capital of Social Economy and the manner that it has been translated in Portugal in 2021. I'm going to speak about it in a general way and in a brief way, as we normally do in this sort of meeting. I always have a dilemma. Am I going to give a written presentation, or am I going to speak in a more impromptu manner? But I think that it can be a little bit dangerous to speak impromptu, particularly because we do not have sufficient time to do so. Portugal has assumed during this very difficult year a hard task, and we know what those circumstances are. We know that it is the pandemic, but we assume the presidency of the Committee of Monetization of the Declaration of Luxembourg, and it also coincided with the presidency of the European Union Council. We concluded the latter presidency with very encouraging results, not only in terms of our national plans, but also international plans. And therefore, we will assume our commitments with regard to the social economy, as well as all other designations that will be attributed to us as per the traditions and the legislations of all countries. And this sector has to be recognized because it covers a universe of identities which has its common value, which is the people. Its capital, its primordial capital is the people, which is contrary to the capitalist model, which the framework that we belong to, notwithstanding our personal opinions. So, notwithstanding the private sector, which is a lucrative sector, these ideologies have as its neural point the people and not the capital. So I would like to use an opportunity to salute the Councillor Schmidt, which has its Luxembourg Declaration. There are so many Portuguese that live and work in Luxembourg. And I would like to say a few words about this, because sometimes the personalities, the people, the personages that are the propellers of certain initiatives are forgotten or are not glorified. So I would like to highlight the importance of the action of this commissioner with regard to the area of the social economy. I would like also to speak about the background of the social economy capital, which has its headquarters here in Cascais. Here we are in this beautiful palace, which is magnificent. We can see the wonderful view that we can see from where I'm standing. I'm not sure whether the cameras are able to focus on the wonderful environment that we are in, which is also very inspiring. This idea, which brought us here to Cascais, and with regard to this topic of the social economy, came from a process which in very few words I would like to describe. In 2017, during the Spanish presidency of the Monitoring Committee in Madrid, we had a European conference with regard to social economy, which has at its title The Future for European Community, and which led us to the Madrid Declaration, which highlighted the importance of the sector for the European economy. In view of the impact of this conference, it was stated that Madrid was the capital of social economy, and it was debated the possibility of creating an annual capital for this sector of activity. Therefore, during the presidency we chose Marburg in 2018, Strasbourg in 2019, Toledo was chosen in 2020. All of it was chosen under the presidency, the Spanish presidency. And we then chose Portugal as the capital of the social economy. And in view of these attributes, we then did a study on all the potential cities in Portugal that could fulfill this role. The first criterion, or the main criterion to select the cities that were placed at the forefront of a selection process, was a number of entities of social economy that were present in our municipalities. So we chose 10 cities that had the most entities that promote activities of social economy. And at the moment, we have Lisbon, Porto, Coimbra, Braga, Sintra, Vila Nova de Gaia, Cascais, Oeiras, Almada, and Guimarães. Some of these are a little bit out of our knowledge or out of our periphery, but we also chose Torres Vedras because even though Torres Vedras is not part of the ranking of entities that promote this sort of activity, is part of REVS, a network of social economy capitals. And we thought that it would be unjust in view of the fact that it has as its tradition this work of social economy. So then we launched a tender process of selection where all the cities participated, and we arrived, taking into account numerous factors, we arrived at 5 nominations, and they arrived at my office. I had to decide. I had to apply a matrix of criteria to decide which of these cities is going to assume the capital as the capital of social economy. And we all know that there is a phenomenon that all the decision makers have to confront, and that phenomenon is called indecisiveness. So facing a situation that we have to decide on something, we obviously have some moments of indecisiveness. What am I going to do? What are we going to do? How we are going to choose this? How we are going to decide? So all the nominations that came to the end of this process were well defined. Each one of them had certain important aspects relating to the social economy and in differing aspects. And during this process of indecisiveness, I thought that I should propose the following. Instead of creating one city as the capital, we should create a network of cities that could become the capital of social economy. Madam Minister agreed with this logic, with this process of decision-making. So we present a model which allows us to present various events according to the various ability of that city. It allows us to include more and more agents and stakeholders in the society, and this may become the beginning of a commitment which is of a long term, which is long-lasting. We can have good ideas, we can have sometimes good initiatives, even good projects. However, and Mr. Sobrinho Simões yesterday in an interview said the following. He referred to the fact that sometimes we have the ability to translate those long-term projects into sustainable projects, into projects that would acquire a certain dynamic and a certain dimension. So here we are before an opportunity, and in this case, I'm talking about Portugal. It doesn't mean that in European terms, we cannot create a dynamic where we can replicate this model. I know that there are various networks in the European environment, but through this process, maybe we can create conditions which can create a network of to englobe more cities, to involve more municipalities, create micro networks, create thematic networks, creating good practices of partnerships, of various geometries, where we can create more of a network, and turning away from that general tendency, which is to dehybridize these processes. In other words, we should go more and more towards sharing the entities, sharing the processes of these various entities, public, private sector, and social economy. And in this way, we can maintain the values of each of these sectors as much as possible. So through this brief description and through this participation and contribution of all these cities, we started creating a link between the cities and the social economy. Recently, we received another piece of news, which is very hopeful, which is in last Thursday, on the 1st of July, through the Committee of Regions, it elected, there was an opinion that was provided relating to a plan of action relating to the social economy that's going to be launched by the European Community in the last quarter. This plan of action through the Committee of Regions is going to be a flagship, and it's going to reflect the fact that this plan for the social economy is going to become a reality and not only news. This is very interesting for all the countries, for all the states in the European Union, for all our cities, because this plan is going to create a political program focus at European Union level, and it's going to streamline the social economy, which beforehand was a subordinate theme. And I think that at the end of this year, this theme is going to be streamlined. It's going to be placed at the highest level of our agenda. The announcer of this news was Mikhail Lamisaga, a Spanish citizen. Irujo, I'm not sure if I'm going to say his name correctly. Azeja is a ministry, a regional ministry of entrepreneurial progress in Navarra, who is going to participate in this conference at 12 o'clock with an intervention relating to the regional challenges of social economy. He has a lot of experience and will provide and will promote an intelligent social economy with Laponia, Orebo, and the Republic of Slovenia. So this is going to present a dynamic that's going to involve various regions and countries. This speaker, Miguel Irujo, is going to be with the director, with Mikhail Lamisaga. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name. And these are fantastic indicators of social economy in general. As further empirical evidence, I would also like to highlight, as we know, that the social economy is a reality which has a social economy aspect. Mr. President of INE, who's going to speak remotely as part of this hybrid process of holding conferences, the president of INE is going to speak about the social economy satellite account as a statistical instrument that's going to provide us the microeconomic indicators that reflect the Portuguese economy, and is going to speak about the innovations of the social economy satellite account. This sector contributes in a very expressive way within our European context towards the creation of employment. As was already stated in this conference, this is a sector which has a great potential to create jobs. And this hasn't been sufficiently exploited. This creation of employment hasn't been sufficiently exploited. And we talk here about stable employment because most of the employments in this identity are to be stable, they are to be quality employment. So although we already have stable employment, largely we need to have employment of quality. The numbers are quite clear. The numbers have been registered in the various statistical instruments that we have. We have 6.1% of employment, of full-time employment. But I think that more recently, and particularly in 2020, which was a year of great crisis, the employment which was created by social economy would have grown significantly, knowing that the sector is a lot more resilient in terms of job creation. So I think that we had a good and significant growth. So in partnership with INE, we decided that the next satellite account would be based on information, on data, not only from 2019, which would follow a matrix of the other satellite accounts, 2010, 2016, and thereafter, but arriving at a satellite account of 2020, which is being drafted with data of 2019. This will enable us to compare the evolution of these 2 years, 2019, which we all know, and then 2020, which was defined by this phenomenon of the pandemic. In Portugal, this sector, even though we don't have recent information, we had 270,000 of which 72% are women. So this is a sector where most of the women are, where most of the people are women. Women at various, at medium level, at medium management, and male at top level. So here we already see some discrepancy, and time and policies are going to correct this. It is very interesting, and it's quite impressive that there is this discrepancy, that top management are largely male, and medium level management is also mostly male. So who holds the chieftainship of these enterprises, directors, people that have to take decisions on an everyday level, are women. But then we have a top structure where women are sub-represented. And I give a lot of importance to this issue of gender, knowing that this sector has to correct itself through its democratic processes. The majority of the workers have a work contracts without a defined time period, which is a huge percentage, which is higher than the national average. So, which is what I speak about when I speak about secure job. More than 70% have a fixed term. Most have a medium level management level. Most of them are women, as I said, 72%. And there is also a certain percentage which are foreigners. This is a percentage which is higher than the 2.5% which reflects the national economy. In other words, this sector employs double of foreigner employers as compared to the national economy. So what we say is that this is an integrating sector. It's a sector that contributes towards the integration of all people, people who with disabilities, people with certain disadvantages. It is a sector that integrates in a natural way, let us say that. In other words, we do not have rules, we do not have legislation, we do not have regulations that make us move towards that integrated approach. We move towards the integrated approach in a very natural way. We have another characteristic, which is quite interesting, and this has to do with the same theme. 31% of these entities privilege the local or municipal level. In other words, 1/3 of the entities of social economy prefer or optimize interaction with the local municipalities, with the local authorities. So this is a very well-known sector which is very active within its local authorities. And also interaction with the interior. A huge percentage has its activities in regions of the interior of our country. If we have a look, or even if it's an empirical perspective of certain centers, of certain regions, we see that these centers are located in the interior. And sometimes, for example, if we just look at the multi-bank with the ATM machines, we see that a lot of them, just taking an example, they are situated in the interior. And this is a practical aspect because it is not very easy to maintain aspects that present themselves as anti-cyclical. So our initiatives are quite dynamic with regard to this. So promoting social economy, which is a very strong factor, and of the municipality, of the quality of our municipal policies is very important in that we reinforce the activity in terms of the economy. It stimulates the citizenship of our citizens. It reinforces our policies, and it creates a synergetic and harmonizing ambience and environment that fights against negative policies. It also creates solid basis for digital innovation in an environment which is social and cultural, which has humanity as its forefront. It creates partnerships with means of production without losing its identity. And in this way, we can provide a consistent strategy towards a policy that is balanced, harmonious, and equitative. And also it provides for some social cohesion in our municipalities. This is our reality, and it can also be even more developed in our future through the functions and the roles that the municipalities and the local authorities will play. So to all the presidents of the municipalities of Braga, Cascais, Coimbra, Sintra, and Torres Vedras, and their respective teams, who are represented here in this forum. We can at least see some representatives of Braga through this adhesion to the network of these cities. They have contributed to a future which will enable also the development of European networks using the same model.
Conta satélite da economia social, a questão estatística e o caso português é o tema que o
social
Sr. Presidente do
economy,
Conselho
satellite
Diretivo do
account,
Instituto
the
Nacional de
statistical
Estatística,
issue, and the
Dr.
Portuguese
Francisco
case
Gonçalves
is the
de Lima,
theme
nos
that
traz em
Dr.
formato de
Francisco Gonçalves de
videoconferência.
Lima is
Doutor,
going
seja
to
bem-vindo.
present to us via remotely.
Bom dia a todos. Peço desculpa aqui estas.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize. This hybrid format is confusing to me. I'd like to greet the Minister, the Mayor of Cascais. I'd like to thank them for inviting me to be here. I'd also like to thank Eduardo Graça. I've been working with him for the past few years.
Eu hoje tinha aqui uma apresentação sobre a nossa conta satélite, que é caso.
I have a presentation on our satellite account. This is a case study, internationally speaking, of course.
Por causa da questão metodológica, pelo avanço que foi.
Because of the methods.
E, portanto, eu tinha aqui preparado uma breve apresentação sobre alguns resultados, algumas notas metodológicas e a forma como ela.
So I'd like to talk about methodology, about how the way methodology can be used. We have several indicators on social economy. We also have a survey on voluntary work and another survey on companies and institutions active in the field of social economy. Eduardo Graça mentioned a few of these results. I have this presentation in English, and maybe I'll switch over to English.
Podem perguntar. Muito bem. Então, so let me. Okay. So it's a partnership with cases.
Temos então aqui uma parceria com a CASES. Estamos na terceira edição e a ideia de ter esta conta satélite
put a magnifying lens in the economy and see everything that is related with some.
A ideia é concentrarmos na economia e ver tudo o que tem a ver com este aspecto, nomeadamente a economia social, e é esse o objetivo principal.
And so Portugal, Statistics Portugal has already developed several satellite accounts in tourism, related with the ocean, and so with the environment, agriculture, and it's in that case, in that particular case, we are also a special case study in international terms, because even without so many human resources as we would like, we were able to produce a significant amount of satellite accounts. Of course, we are pledged by our success, because every area in the economy now wants a satellite account. That it's not possible to do everything, but we are trying to increase the number of satellite accounts. So just a brief note on the methodology. We based our so we started in 2010. We're based in the European system of regional and national accounts. The ISA 2010. We also based in methodological terms on the social economy framework law and the handbook from the United Nations, and also the manual from CDEC. So these are the methodological bases, but an important characteristic of our satellite account is that it has a modular approach. It means that depending on the objectives of the user, someone that wants to analyze the results, it can see the whole social economy, or it can focus his attention in a particular set of institutions. And so that's one of the advantages of our approach. We even introduced special status institutions in the 2016 edition. So, for example, representative associations of immigrants and their descendants, or for disabled people. So that's also something that is new in our satellite account, the Portuguese approach. So it has this. It's a magnifying lens, right? If you remember your economics classes, where you studied the GDP and aggregate demand and aggregate supply and so on. So what we do here, we go to what is the situation of the economy in 1 year. It takes some time. We would like to do it more timeless, but anyway, it's based on national accounts. So it means that you need to compile the GDP and all the components of GDP. So that's that's the main source, the national accounts. Then we have a structural source that is from Statistics Portugal, the General Register of Statistical Units, where you can identify every unit that is in the social economy, operating in social economy. Then we have several surveys, for example, the labor force survey, the survey on mutual associations, and so on. And we also have different administrative sources, and also the financial statements of the cooperatives accredited by cases, administrative sources that come from the Ministry of Social Security, Labor and Social Security, from the Ministry of Justice, the general accounts from the government, also from the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So we compile all this information from these different sources, and we arrive to results. Let me just show you an infographics that have the main results here. So as you can see on the top left corner, we can see that the social economy represents 3% of gross value added. So in terms of production, the compensation of workers, of employees, represents 5.3%. And in terms of employment, we have more than 200,000 workers in this sector. That represents 6.1% of the total employment. So we can also mention that this economy, from the social economy from 2013 to 2016, has experienced higher growth rates in terms of gross value added, so production, compensation of employees, and number of employees, that it's higher than for the whole economy. Not in terms of investment, but it can be partly explained by these activities, mainly labor intensive. So we also identified more than 70,000 institutions in this sector, and we can identify each type of institution, for example, cooperatives or foundations or holy houses of mercy. That's the translation for Misericórdias. And we can identify, that's the modular approach, we can identify the production and the employment in each of these type of entities. We can also identify, if you see in the middle, the weight of each activity in terms of number of institutions, in terms of production, and in terms of number of employees. And of course, we can have a map. We can put these activities in terms of production, in terms of employment, compensation in the territory. That's also an advantage of this approach. So let me just give you a brief numbers and the evolution from 2013 to 2016. So as you can see, that's one of the characteristics of the satellite account. So it can also can identify production, you can identify compensations of employees and employment, but also can identify the different types of consumption, what is being produced and how. That's the characteristics, and you can see there's a positive evolution mainly in terms of production, and you can see also the decrease of gross capital formation, that's investment, but all the other figures experience an increase between this 3-year interval. If we want to compare so production, gross value added divided by the number of employees, so it's per employee, it's a crude measure of productivity if you want, and if we compare, so if we put this in relative terms, if comparing with the Portuguese economy, we can see that mutual associations, we have here the financial institutions that operate and that operate in this sector. You can see that production is higher. All the other sectors have a production for what we can measure in terms of production, a lower level per employee, lower level than for the whole economy. Of course, we must deal with this comparison in a careful way, not only because we are talking about social economy, but also because maybe comparing with the old economy, it's not a fair comparison. We should compare somehow with non-social economy activities that can be in terms of the use of labor, the use of capital, that can be more similar, more comparable to the social economy. In here we have the comparison in terms of compensation per employee, so average wage, if you want. Again, we can see the presence of in the mutual associations, the presence of financial activities here that increases wages. But for example, foundations or cooperatives are aligned with what is the average wage in the economy, and even for the whole social economy, it's a little lower than what is for the average wage or the average compensation in the whole economy. We can also make some international comparisons. They are difficult because there's no single standard. So some countries look at GDP, other countries look at gross value added. So gross value added, just to remember, it's a value is a measure of the production of all. I should have been started by this concept, but it's the value added. You understand what is the concept? So it's all the value added of all the entities that are here in this social economy. So you can see that some countries have a lower weight in terms of social economy in the national economy. Other countries like France and Belgium have a higher weight in terms of social economy in the national economy. You can also compare. Again, must be careful with this comparison. But anyway, you can see that Portugal, in terms of number of employees in the total economy that are dedicated to the social economy, are more or less aligned what was the the European Union, the 28 member states in 2014, so in 2015, so including in this case, still including the United Kingdom. And finally, thanks. So it's a brief presentation to show you how can be this information can be used. As Eduardo Graça said, we are working on the new edition of the national account, and we are working on that. We plan to introduce information for the pandemic year. Well, we are still in another year with the pandemic situation, but we plan to include also information for the last year, because it's there's a change, and in particular in the social economy can be observed that there are some changes that we want to capture in this information. So we have more information on this on our website. If the organizers distribute the presentation, we have the links for not only for the publication and all the data on the social economy satellite account, but also on volunteer work. So thanks once again. It's a pleasure to be here in this event. Thank you.
Muito obrigado. Regresso ao formato presencial. Convido a subir a este palco o Sr. Presidente da Portugal Inovação Social, Dr. Filipe Almeida, com uma intervenção sobre inovação na economia social, uma vocação, uma oportunidade e um imperativo.
An opportunity and an imperative.
Toca-nos a todos. Muito bom dia a todos, Sr. Secretário de Estado.
Good morning to everybody, Mr. Secretary of State, President of CASES, mayors of municipalities, administrators, directors, and entrepreneurs that obviously give a face to the social economy of Portugal. In the first place, I'd like to thank for the invitation that was given to me to talk about the innovation in the social economy. I am part of CASES, and as per CASES, we decided to nominate not one city, but 5 cities as the capital. And this reflects the cooperation, the spirit of collaboration. And this is quite inspiring. And this is, I'm sure, going to be contagious, as everything we do in Portugal is. So Mr. Dr. Eduardo Graça invited me to present something on innovation in social economy. And I would like to present something that was already published in the Journal of Social Economy, and which constitutes the most relevant and most relevant legacy of social economy of Portugal. It appears that I'm going to provide you with a concise version and an adapted version of the article of my authorship, and it appears in Economia Social, a journal. Reflection on the social economy is, in my opinion, a reflection on our future, our common future, how we're going to act in a collective way. And from that perspective, this is going to be one of the biggest debates of our lives at the moment. There are many challenges. We have to ascertain how we're going to organize ourselves, how we're going to contract services, how we're going to integrate objectives in our innovative strategy, what our intentions, our goals and objectives are. We have to provide responses that are concrete, and at the same time, we have to promote bonds between our communities. So to modernize our strategies is an imperative, and an imperative that has to be taken on board by the collective. In view of the fact that this is a dynamic concept and which can be appropriated historically, this term social economy has a French origin in the first half of the 19th century. At the time, it was a moral philosophy which was based on communities that were organized and that were presented an alternative to liberal governance, as Mr. Professor Álvaro Garrido of the University of Coimbra reminds us. Thereafter and presently, those principles have now become urgent. However, the world has changed. Now it has to be institutionalized, it has new actors, new agents, new methods. Today, we call social economy those activities that have as its objectives social economy that are not for profit, that are democratized, and are for the public service. So we do not obviously focus on the targets. However, we have to question its methods. We have to try and find some challenging structures. And I have three categories. There are challenges that are related to its resources, challenges, contextual challenges, and the operations of the organizations that constitute that sector. With regard to resources, one of its main challenges is the need to rejuvenate the sector, to attract the youth, to rejuvenate the staff, the people that participate in it with or without remuneration. However, the youth cannot wish what they do not know. Therefore, we need to educate them so that they can recognize in the social economy a unique opportunity to have a life project with a career project all in one. But to attract more youth, we have to capacitate them. We have to develop the management models. We have to develop their capacities and to promote and to incentivize them to follow this career. We saw the numbers that compared to the economy, we have a very low percentage. If we concentrate on the subgroup of charity organizations, the percentage is 10%. But continuing with the resources, we also need to mobilize more investment in order to complement other income. In 2018, we saw that the income from these organizations, donations represent 5%. Therefore, we have to take advantage of the investment of impact. In other words, investments that are orientated towards those projects of social economy. So the sector of economy of social economy is that context itself. So we have to attract that sort of investment that prioritizes
essa mobilização de investimentos será certamente potenciada pela mobilização da gestão e da comunicação, pela inovação dos métodos,
we have to innovate the methods, we have to innovate the administration, and we have to innovate the results also. With regard to context,
sobre o perímetro da economia social.
The perimeter of the social economy lends itself to a debate which has become quite large over the years. This debate includes traditional responses to it, but should also include other collective responses from the small activity, from small communities in order to improve the well-being of a suburb, to access of technology that allows us to fight against mental illness or extreme alienation. So here we go to entrepreneurial activity. We know that these activities are not strangers to the social economy, but it has to be an activity that is reconciliatory, and that has to identify not only the public sector, but also the private sector. That has to have ethical conditions, transformational conditions along all generations. The modernization of the social economy also presents some challenges to the state, particularly with the manner that the public services are contracted. The contracting of these services can develop into a hybrid way of contracting in order to promote the well-being of our communities. The contracting results that are adjusted to the characteristics of each region, of each user within their own context, can create an incentive to the modernization of the social economy and stimulate and finance the solutions that we pretend. With regard to the operationalization, in other words, the manner in which we organize and we operate the entities, we are looking at a very heterogeneous universe with various levels of activity, but I define 6 challenges: to professionalize, to digitalize, to collaborate, to evaluate, communicate, and obviously innovate. First, professionalize. We have to professionalize the management. The model has to be changed. For example, the CEO has to be remunerated, has to be placed within the various technical organs. Without changing that matrix, he can also contribute to attract all the necessary competencies to develop these organizations. This is a necessity which has been recognized by the sector. The second challenge: digitalization. The ICTs and more advanced solutions to deal with data, as well as artificial intelligence, and we already have some examples, can be very potent examples to improve the social economy. Therefore, we have to modernize all of this, open new solutions so that the processes can be more efficient, to stimulate new ways of doing things and create and innovate and digitalize the teams. Third challenge: develop strategic partnerships. There is a potential which hasn't been explored, which is to develop inter-partnerships. Management of resources, the restrictions of financing in the sector have applied certain limits within the creation of our bonds. But this can change, and we can open so that it can be accessible to more. Fourth, evaluate the impact. We have a social impact, which are very relevant, but often they are not evaluated, they are not quantified. So again, we go back to the survey, which showed that 93% of these organizations did not do any study to measure the impact of the interventions. It is therefore urgent to use the knowledge that we already have to measure and to see what impact the activities that have already been developed have had. Communication. Communicate efficiently, communicate to the youth, to mobilize the professionals, to mobilize the resources, to obtain investment and to obtain other organizations as partnerships. It is important, therefore, to communicate efficiently with a language that is simple and clear. This is also an instrument of change, and a sector which acts well but does not communicate properly is not a positive factor. Innovate, the last challenge. Innovate in our methods and in our responses. Innovate in our methods of intervention. It is important to create models of continuity, to improve our methods, and also to experiment with new solutions, with innovative solutions, to give new answers. This innovation, which is a social innovation, is social because it's orientated towards the autonomy of those who are most vulnerable. This innovation is not necessary if we have efficient innovations for all our answers. We do not have at our fingertips all these mechanisms, and therefore it is necessary for us to innovate. Do we even doubt that the solutions that we have for our old age people respond to the needs of what our children are going to be one day, or going to our third age? Do we even think that the solutions that we have today are going to also help the future generations? If we have a strategic system for the preventative medicine, for not only physical medicine, but for also but for mental illness, do we have any doubt that the innovation can contribute to all of this, that all these capacities can at the same time create bonds between all our citizens together with all these systems of innovation? So the social economy has always been the beginning of the transformation and the fight against inequality. However, never has in the past been confronted with such favorable conditions for us to change this environment in order for us to evolve our public policies. Thanks to the European grants, we developed a model, a pioneering model, which is a program that mobilizes the funds from the European Union to finance social enterprises. To date, we've already approved 586 projects in all our regions, which represent 74 million euros that have been approved. Of these, 92 have been allocated to organizations of social economy, which shows the innovation that we have in the sector to produce disruptive solutions to the methods that we are developing. Of those 92 million euros, 27 million are social investment. In other words, from other entities, public and private, that are interested in investing in these projects, in becoming involved in these projects and in their territories. So Portugal has really become a great experimental lab in the last 4 years. One of our case studies, and which has been well known in Europe, many countries are now developing their public policies through the inspiration from Portugal. Canada, $800 million, has created a fund for these innovations. We also have activities of impact, another program which has suffered lately for reasons that we already know, but it is a network that is already underway, and it was financed by the European Union. 24 of the 27 member states are actively preparing the infrastructures of knowledge and to capacitate ecosystems of developing centers of competencies. We belong to one of the 6 consortiums. We are 7 years ahead of all of them because the centers of competencies was to create a center in every European country using the Portuguese model, but we are going to use this opportunity to also create a European network. We have a lot of opportunities in Portugal to create this network of social economy. As a footnote, I would like to share some from the first code, Colored, which has already been applied to many articles, from robots to clothes, to hospitals, to villages, which from Bragança, where its residents, with old age residents, are able to move without altering the structure of those places through this Colored, where old aged people are able to communicate with each other. This has transformed their lives. It has transformed their visitors also. The project called Equi, which is teaching people to read and write all over Portugal, and the Braille method is another way of communicating. The project Valoring, which was born in Vila do Conde in Porto, which is implanted in factories and which contracts people with disabilities, promoting that Santa Casa de Misericórdia de Vagos also has a very interesting project which looks after people with mental illness, with families. Santa Casa de Misericórdia de Porto, which also has a very advanced technology to look after people in order to help those who have been isolated and give them a better quality of life. Also in Leiria, in the teaching of mathematics in Évora, Plataforma 55+, which in Porto allows people with more than 55 years of age to have some sort of job, and also helps their neighbors who need some employment. So this can be a very powerful instrument for the social economic recuperation post-pandemic. This can help also in armed conflict, with the climate change, with the destruction of our natural resources. All of this is going to define our future and our planet. So at the crossroads of all these challenges, the viability of our future requires innovation, requires innovative resources, requires dynamic movement and activism, and therefore we have to provide our local communities, we have to access the talent of our entrepreneurs, and we need the vision of our public policies. We need to mobilize people, communities, involve them in the co-building of innovating solutions. And this is the inspiration and the innovation that we look for today. This is our objective. And we have always been the birthplace of innovation, and this is going to be more than ever now. We need them now, and we need to reinvent ourselves, and we need to reinvent our future. As a lasting word, I would like you to think about our children and about our grandchildren. At a time where there are so many conflicts, maybe we haven't found a better solution to help our youth, for them to understand what role can they play in a time that is radically changing. But if we can show them a way where they can find a career, they can find a project, maybe they will find the solution that we all need. Social economy, I think, is one of those roads. And I think it is time that we give and we show our youth that way, that road.
Convido a usar da palavra o Sr. Comissário Europeu para o Emprego e Direitos Sociais, Nicholas Schmidt.
And now the floor
por plano de ação europeu para a economia social,
of Jobs and
desafios
Social Affairs,
e prioridades.
Mr. Nicholas Schmidt, where he'll speak about a European Action Plan for Social Economy, Challenges and Priorities. Bom dia a todos. Bom dia de Bruxelas para a sua alheira Cascais. Gostaria de começar por agradecer à ministra Ana Mendes Godinho pelo convite para estar presente nesta conferência. Compreenderão que isto é um convite que me é muito caro porque faz-me recuar no tempo, faz-me pensar na presidência do Luxemburgo em 2015, quando se assumiu esta iniciativa, foi assumida por um número limitado de Estados-membros que lançaram este processo para apoiar a economia social a nível europeu. Saúdo a presidência portuguesa do Comitê de Monitorização da Declaração de Luxemburgo e agradeço ao município de Cascais pelo
this event. I also commend the efforts of the Portuguese presidency to expand and consolidate the participation of member states in the monitoring committee of the Luxembourg Declaration through a new declaration that will be launched today by you in Cascais. By the way, I heard that a new member will join this group that was announced when we met at an informal meeting of labor ministers. Bulgaria has announced that they will join the group. So it shows that the group has not only lost nothing from its dynamics, from its dynamism, but is still a very attractive group for all those member states who consider that social economy is an indispensable element, especially in this period of big transformation, but also as a response to the consequences of the pandemic. I would like to congratulate those ministers and countries who have joined the monitoring committee and who are working on implementing the values expressed in the Luxembourg Declaration and in the recent Toledo Declaration, and strongly encourage them to also endorse the Cascais Declaration. Widening the support for social economy at the highest political level is key to ensuring that appropriate conditions are created that allow social economy to develop and to thrive. As you know, the European Commission is equally committed to promoting the social economy as a key driver for an inclusive and sustainable future. As the pandemic and related containment measures continue to have an impact on our lives, it is essential for Europe and its member states to ensure that the health and economic crisis does not result in further growing inequalities. Not just income inequalities, but also inequalities of opportunities and capabilities, such as the capacity of citizens to access important social services, health, care, nutrition, education. Social economy is key to ensure access to these services. We need to move from emergency to building a fair, inclusive, and sustainable recovery, with social progress at its heart. The action plan for the implementation of the European Pillar of Social Rights shows the way, and the social economy organizations and social enterprises will play a key role in the implementation of this action plan and in the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. They are contributing to cushioning the impact of this crisis in numerous ways, and they will also contribute to building a new sustainable economy. Since the beginning of this crisis, social economy organizations have quickly adapted their activities to respond to the most urgent needs. For example, by developing support networks for people in need in their communities, like assistance for digital education, food banks, prevention of loneliness, and action against homelessness. However, social economy organizations also suffer from the consequences of the crisis themselves. Their activities were often interrupted. They could not rely on a sufficient number of volunteers. The management of the crisis entailed additional costs, and their available funding became more limited. We need to look beyond the crisis, aiming at building a fairer, more prosperous, and stronger, socially stronger European Union. We need to accompany its long-term transformation into a greener economy fit for the digital age to ensure that they are inclusive. I'm convinced that the social economy has its part, its important part, to play in achieving this ambition. The reason for this is very simple. The social economy puts people first. With the social economy, the EU has a powerful tool to lead the green, digital, and demographic transitions by example. Social enterprises active in the area of circular economy and reuse and repair do not only support the transition towards a low-carbon, resource-efficient, and inclusive economy. At the same time, they provide a large number of decent jobs to people at risk of exclusion, and they train employees in circular skills, filling an important gap of the traditional education system. It can therefore help put into action the Commission's Circular Economy Action Plan, which is one of the main blocks of the European Green Deal, anchoring its implementation to the territorial and local dimension. The social economy model is a participatory one, involving workers, local communities, and stakeholders. It holds significant potential to empower citizens and communities, especially at local levels and in rural areas where many social economy organizations are embedded. The recent Commission communication on a long-term vision for the EU's rural areas acknowledges this potential by including entrepreneurship and the social economy among its flagship initiatives to promote prosperous rural areas. This is key with a view to boosting job creation and fighting long-term unemployment at local level in an effective and lasting manner. The social economy model is a very flexible model, and it naturally brings innovation. It can help us reinvent the way we live and work, the way we produce and consume, the way we eat and heat, travel and transport. Similarly, social economy organizations can contribute to ensuring that the digital transition does not leave vulnerable groups behind. For example, social enterprises design and sell products that are accessible for people with disabilities and vulnerable people. They also teach digital skills to citizens and create opportunities for the digital participation of disadvantaged groups. Some social economy organizations operate through technology-driven business models, generating positive social impact while delivering innovative services. New business models, such as cooperative platforms or community platforms, are good examples on how to use the platform model to boost citizen engagement for social impact or to facilitate the selling of goods and services in a democratically governed business. In this regard, it is key to build on innovative digital solutions for social economy actors with a view to scaling up and spreading of best practices. However, as highlighted by the COVID-19 crisis, a number of social economy organizations, particularly smaller organizations, are struggling to make the digital transition. They face several obstacles in this regard, such as lack of knowledge and skills at all levels, including also the management and staff. They also lack access to tailored or adaptable technology and financial means to invest in these. There's a clear need to boost digital education and skills targeted to the social economy actors and businesses. Looking ahead at a post-pandemic scenario, at a time when the EU sets out to mainstream an economic model based on fair, sustainable, and inclusive growth, the transformative capacity of the social economy is gaining momentum. With a new action plan planned for the end of this year, the Commission will put forward concrete measures to help mobilize the full potential of the social economy in the short and longer term. We will build on the results of the 2011 Social Business Initiative to contribute to sustainable and inclusive growth and a fair recovery while achieving the green and digital transitions. Our priority with this action plan is to harness the potential of social economy organizations to contribute to the current transformations and make it easier for them to operate. This requires, first and foremost, a boost to the visibility of social economy. This was already a priority of the Social Business Initiative, and it remains a key issue today. The general public, policymakers at all levels, and funders still lack awareness, knowledge, and understanding of the specificities of social economy organizations and of their positive impact on society and the environment. This often means social economy actors do not benefit from appropriate policy support, and especially also from appropriate financial support and means. Secondly, helping social economy stakeholders also means helping member states, local authorities, and operators to build enabling ecosystems. In particular, the EU will encourage and support national and regional authorities to adopt policy strategies in support of social economy. This will make policies and legal frameworks in different fields more coherent and adapted to the needs of social economy organizations and social enterprises. Thirdly, social economy stakeholders also need access to public and private finance across the EU. Here also we can do more, and we have to do more. Since 2014, a range of funding instruments has been put in place and have often made a difference on the ground. However, the reality is that social economy organizations and social enterprises still have difficulties accessing finance. And this has to change. We have to simplify and to make the access to financial means more efficient and especially also simpler. The member states and the EU have important funding instruments at their disposal, such as the Recovery and Resilience Facility, the European Social Fund Plus, and the InvestEU Fund. These instruments, as well as opportunities under other EU programs, need to be better known and accessible by social economy stakeholders, and especially by smaller organizations. Beyond those three priorities, the action plan will also aim to address other important objectives. For instance, we need to encourage social economy organizations and social enterprises to scale up. the possibilities offered by existing EU rules to use public procurement to pursue social objectives should be better used. Contracts can be reserved to enterprises employing disadvantaged workers or people with disabilities. Public authorities can also raise the awareness of opportunities linked with public procurement towards social economy organizations and social enterprises. Social economy has a lot of experience in delivering social services, such as long-term care and childhood care. Public authorities should consider them as partners to improve the delivery of such essential services. More generally, we should encourage social economy organizations and social enterprises to cooperate more amongst each other with the public sector, but also with mainstream businesses. We also need to boost the creation of social innovation and develop the appropriate tools and policy environment so that it can achieve systemic change. In addition, social entrepreneurship is often appealing to young people who have a high interest in social economy and its positive impact on society. Policy interventions often ignore the importance of promoting social entrepreneurship from a young age in order to equip young people with the right set of skills and thus bringing lasting effects. Finally, our action should go beyond the EU borders. In this respect, I believe we can establish a collaboration between the EU and third countries based on common objectives, notably on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We will aim to strengthen the social economy in non-EU countries, in particular in enlargement and neighboring countries, especially also in the Mediterranean and also in Africa. And here, the EU development cooperation can play a very important role. I just can tell you, as I was in Luxembourg in 2015, when we launched this initiative, there were representatives also of, especially of countries from the Mediterranean, from our neighbors of the Mediterranean, especially a minister from Tunisia, who was very much engaged and committed to develop social economy also in Tunisia. Therefore, we have an obligation also to support this development, especially also to create jobs for the young in these countries where youth unemployment is extremely high. After an extensive period of targeted consultations on the future action plan, we are now coming to a moment of analysis and reflection on the wealth of feedback we received from stakeholders and citizens across Europe. I would like to thank the Monitoring Committee for its work and contributions so far. And I would say, if this group had not been created, probably we would not have an action plan now under this commission. You have played a very important role during all these years to promote, to strengthen the voice of social economy in Europe. Now, our continuous dialogue has provided the Commission with valuable feedback that will be reflected in the action plan for the social economy. Our work and your work will not stop when the action plan is adopted. That's a first, or that's one stage, one step. We count on member states for its implementation, but also on all the actors of social economy, and also on the European side, on the Parliament, which is very committed through the intergroup, but also on the European Investment Bank, by the way, where financial possibilities are available. The Commission will provide support in those areas where EU intervention brings the most added value. And member states will have an important role to play for example, in shaping policy and legal frameworks for the social economy. Today's exchanges, I'm sure, are very useful to help shape our action at all levels in order to jointly raise the profile of social economy in public policy. And I'm looking forward to hearing your contributions and especially also to integrate your contributions and to take great attention of them in drafting our action plan. So I wish you all the best. I thank you all again for your strong commitment. And I think that what you're doing is in the interest of Europe, and especially in the interest of millions of European citizens who need a strong, well-performing social economy, which finally reflects solidarity at all levels, regional, local, national, and European. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner, for your intervention. And now for the reading of the Cascais Declaration for a European Action Plan for Social Economy Promoting
dos Direitos Sociais, convido a subir ao palco o Sr. Diretor Municipal, Dr. Miguel Arrobas.
Declaração de Cascais. Para um plano de ação europeu para a economia social, promotor do papel da economia social no pilar europeu dos direitos sociais. Em continuidade com as anteriores presidências do Comitê de Monitorização da Declaração de Luxemburgo, assegurando o reforço da economia social nas políticas da União Europeia, com especial relevo para o seu contributo para a criação e manutenção de empregos dignos, os representantes dos governos signatários adotam a presente declaração, apresentada na reunião do Comitê de Monitorização realizada em Cascais no dia 13 de julho
held in
de
Cascais
2021.
on 13th of July 2021, recognizing that the damage caused by COVID-19 pandemic, which had a profound effect on public health, strong ripples in the economies and societies of our countries and across the EU, as well as the uncertainty it causes in all areas of life in our communities, it makes the role of social economy more relevant in tackling the social crisis and in promoting social, economic and territorial cohesion. Recognizing that social economy within the diversity of entities that it comprises, impregnated by the common values of cooperation, democracy, solidarity, contributes to achieving, in partnership with public and traditional private business sectors, more agile and proximity responses to the effects of COVID-19 in crucial areas of economic activity and in social action of our communities. It also offers innovative solutions for a just, green and digital transition to play a key role in strengthening Europe's industry and resilience through collective entrepreneurship. Recognizing that social economy is a top-level business and social reality in EU, which is present in all sectors of economic activity with 2.8 million companies and entities, generating 8% of GDP, representing 13.6 million jobs, which shares the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals with the emphasis on Goal 8, which is to promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. Considering the recommendations of the Luxembourg Declaration, which states that a roadmap to a more complete ecosystem for social economy companies of 4th of December, the Bratislava Declaration, the social economy as a key player in providing effective answers to current social challenges in the EU EU and the world, the Declaration of Ljubljana, expansion of social economy enterprises in the social and solidarity economy towards a more solid and structured cooperation between the EU and Southeast Europe. The Madrid Declaration, the social economy, a business model for the future of the EU, the Pact for Impact Manifesto of Paris of 11th of July 2019, as well as the Declaration of Toledo, the social and solidarity economy as a key driver for an inclusive and sustainable future. Recognizing also the relevance of the contribution of social economy to the European Pillar of Social Rights, which was signed jointly by European Parliament, the Council and the Commission on 17 November 2017 at the Social Summit for Fair Jobs and Growth that took place in Gothenburg, Sweden, whose action plan to implement 20 principles set out in the European Pillar of Social Rights was presented in May 2021. Recalling also that the social economy is identified in the 2021 Annual Single Market Report as part of an industrial ecosystem in the context of the update of the 2020 EU Industrial Strategy and its priorities to accelerate the twin green and digital transitions, as well as to strengthen the resilience and social cohesion. Considering the Porto Declaration of 8 May 2021, which underlines the importance of closely following and monitoring the implementation of the major goals of the European Pillar of Social Rights 2030. Gathered in Cascais, today we decided to adopt the following principle and recommendations to reinforce the commitment to the guidelines formulated in the declarations of Luxembourg, Bratislava, Ljubljana, Madrid, in the Manifesto, Pact for Impact of Paris, in the Declaration of Toledo, assuming a common understanding of the values and principles of the social economy affirmed therein, and to give due attention to the measures recommended in the Mannheim Declaration on Social Economy, released at the European Summit on Social Economy on 27 May. We recommend to the EU and Member States the reinforcement of the commitment to social economy entities as instruments of resilience in the context of the economic and social crisis caused by COVID-19, which are included in the European financing instruments and in the recovery and resilience plans, particularly with regard to the maintenance and creation of stable, decent and quality jobs. Third declaration to improve access to the public and private financing for social economy entities, taking into account their specificities. At public level, in addition to specific programs for the social economy at European, national and regional level, special attention should be given to the use of social criteria in public procurement, to the development of relational models with social economy bodies inspired by the principle of solidarity and based on the collaboration in the planning, the design and the execution of services and interventions aimed at raising the levels of social cohesion and protection and recognizing the specificities of social economy entities in terms of state aid. Special attention should also be given to the potential of social economy in order to achieve the emission reduction targets inter alia by including relevant criteria in public procurement. At private level, the development of intermediaries and investors with capacity to understand the particular needs of these activities, including microcredit, ethical and cooperative finance, mutualistic funds, and social impact bonds, is particularly relevant. Priority should also be given to developing solutions that combine the public, private and social economy sectors. To support the European Action Plan for the Social Economy, to be launched by the European Union in the second half of 2021, which aims at supporting existing social economy entities and social enterprises, and the creation of new entities, innovation and social investment, reinforcing the role of social economy in the Pillar of Social Rights, and in the boosting of the green and digital transitions. To welcome the proximity, social economy and civil security industrial ecosystem and reaffirm the role of public and private stakeholders, including social partners, co-create the transition pathway for the
e
green
digital
and
e para
digital
fortalecer a
transition,
resiliência dos atores da
as well
economia
as to
social
strengthen
e
the resilience
empresas
of social
no
economy
mercado
actors
único.
and enterprises
Reforçar o
in our
compromisso com a
single
criação de
market.
instrumentos
To
destinados à
reinforce
formação
the
e
commitment to
capacitação
the
das
creation
entidades da
of
economia
instruments
social,
aimed at
através do
training and
envolvimento dos
empowering
seus
social
atores no
economy
desenho e
entities
implementação da Agência de
through the
Competências para a
involvement of its
Europa,
actors in the
em
design
particular,
and the implementation
através do
of the
Pacto para as
skills agenda
Competências.
for Europe, in
Estes novos
particular
instrumentos
via
levarão
the
em conta as
Pact for
especificidades da
Skills.
economia social,
Such new instruments
designadamente
will
o seu
take into
papel na
account social
integração de
economy
indivíduos em risco de
specificities,
exclusão social
namely
e a
its role
relevância
in
da
integration
inovação,
of
do
individuals at
empreendedorismo
risk
social
of
e do
social
voluntariado,
inclusion,
na
and the relevance
conformação
of
de
innovation,
respostas
social
adequadas aos novos desafios
entrepreneurship
sociais.
and
Ainda
volunteering.
fundamental
It's
melhorar a
also
capacidade
essential
de
to
gestão destas
improve the
entidades,
management
nomeadamente a nível
capacity
da
of these entities
digitalização e para
through
efeitos de acesso ao
digitization
financiamento.
and for the purposes of
Reforçar a
access
cooperação
to
entre os
finance.
Estados-membros
To
empenhados na
strengthen the
promoção da economia
collaboration
social,
amongst member
estabelecendo
states
plano de trabalho
engaged in the
bianual
promotion of the
do
social
Comitê de
economy
Monitorização
by
da Declaração de
setting
Luxemburgo,
a
em
biannual
cooperação
work
com a sociedade
plan
civil,
of the
sempre que se
Monitoring
justifique.
Committee of the Luxembourg
Convidar as partes
Declaration in
interessadas
cooperation
públicas
with
em
civil
diferentes
society
níveis de
wherever
governação
appropriate.
a
To
fortalecer as
invite
redes
public
regionais,
stakeholders at different
locais
levels of
e atores da
governance to
economia social,
strengthen
a fim de
regional,
promover o
local
crescimento
networks
económico
of
e as
social economy
políticas de
actors
inclusão social
to
nos
foster
territórios.
economic growth and social
Recomendar a
inclusion policies
estruturação do
in
âmbito da União
territories.
Europeia e
To
mobilizando o
recommend
programa
the
Erasmus+,
structuring within the
e uma
EU
política
and to
coerente de
mobilize
educação
the
para a economia
Erasmus
social nos
Plus
currículos
program
de todos
of a
os graus de
coherent
ensino,
policy on education
incluindo
for the
ações
social
de
economy in all
sensibilização,
curricula
formação
of all
profissional,
levels of
intercâmbios
education,
entre
including
organizações
awareness
e
raising
cooperação
actions, professional
transnacional,
training, exchanges
fomentando
between
desde o primeiro
organizations
ciclo de
and
ensino,
transnational
junto das
cooperation,
crianças e jovens,
promoting the
o
first cycle
conhecimento
of
e
education
participação em
amongst children
organizações
and the
fundadas por
youth,
pessoas,
knowledge
para
and
satisfação de
participation in
necessidades
organizations
e
founded by
interesses
people
de
for the
pessoas,
satisfaction of
prosseguindo
people's needs and interests,
predominantemente o bem comum.
predominantly in
Reforçar, por
pursuit of
último,
the
o
common
fomento da
good.
cooperação
To
entre a
strengthen the
academia,
promotion of
centros de
cooperation
investigação,
between
institutos de
academia, research
estatística e
centers,
entidades
statistical
e empresas da
institutes, and
economia
social
social para a
economy
criação,
entities,
estabelecimento e
as well as
difusão de
companies,
metodologias,
to create,
redes de boas
establish, and
práticas e
disseminate
instrumentos
methodologies,
estatísticos,
good
incluindo
practice
contas
networks,
satélite da economia social,
statistical
assim
tools,
como estudos
including
e
social
instrumentos de
economy
medição do
satellite
impacto
accounts,
social.
as well as studies
Cascais,
and
13 de
instruments
julho de
for measuring
2021.
the social
Obrigado.
impact. Cascais, 13th of July, 2021. Thank you.
Vamos agora ter breve apontamento cultural com a
Now we are going
guitarrista
to
Marta
have
Pereira
a
da
cultural
Costa,
interval with
acompanhada por
guitarist
António Pinto e por
Mikhail
Gonçalo Leonardo.
da Costa,
Marta Pereira da
accompanied
Costa é
by
atualmente a primeira e única
Marta
mulher
Pereira
a
da
tocar
Costa is
profissionalmente
the only
guitarra
woman
portuguesa
who
no fado.
plays in a
A
professional
nível
manner
mundial,
the
em
guitar in
2014,
our fado,
foi distinguida pela
and
Fundação
in
Amália Rodrigues
2014
com o prémio
she was
Instrumentista. Deixe-se levar por esta viagem de sonoridades.
she received the highest award of Amália Rodrigues. She is accompanied by members of her band.
monitorização Sejam bem-vindos de novo às conferências de Economia Social em Cascais. Vamos dar início ao painel Economia Social dos Desafios Europeus aos Desafios Locais, que será moderado pela Vice-Presidente da Câmara Municipal de Torres Vedras, Ana Umbelino, que é também membro da direção da REVS, Rede Europeia de Cidades e Regiões da Economia Social, e do GESES, Expert Group on Social Economy and Social Enterprises, da Comissão Europeia.
A gravitar em torno do tema Economia Social, dos desafios europeus aos desafios locais, uma das ações âncora do programa da Rede de Cidades Capital Europeia da Economia Social, que corporiza um dispositivo inovador, assente na cooperação, apostado em afirmar, alimentar, criar, revelar várias camadas postas em relação, acrescentando valor ao conjunto diverso superior à soma das partes. A economia social nos territórios, desafios a nível regional, é o leitmotiv para uma conversa que convoca o olhar atento, informado e perspectivante de três convidados que saúdo: Maria Manuel Leyton Marques, Mikhail Lamisaga e Philip Tepper. Prefigura-se um diálogo polifónico que tem como pano de fundo e horizonte o Plano Europeu para a Economia Social, a lançar pela Comissão Europeia no último quadrimestre deste ano, após um processo de consulta e discussão pública, num momento particular da trajetória europeia que, sob a égide do Pacto Ecológico, intenta, recordo, encaminhar a Europa para um processo de transformação equitativa numa sociedade justa e próspera, com impacto neutro no clima, que, reproduzindo as conclusões do Conselho Europeu de dezembro de 2019, trará, deseja-se, oportunidades significativas, tais como potencialidades.
To see Europe towards a process of equitable transformation into a just and prosperous society with a climate neutral impact. I would like to start with Maria Leyton Marques, who, in the context of a very rich career, combines a multiplicity of experiences in different positions. And I would like to briefly remind that she is a full professor at the University of Coimbra and a researcher at the Center for Social Studies at this same university. She was Minister of the Presidency and Administrative Modernization and is currently a member of the European Parliament, within which she was part of the Intergroup for Social Economy that was recently re-established. This intergroup was responsible for promoting this action plan for social economy that aims at exploiting the potential of the social economy to create quality jobs and contribute to fair, sustainable and inclusive growth, considering that municipalities are the level of governance closest to people and communities. We would like to hear a member of the European Parliament share her thoughts on the role of municipalities and regions in the development of the social economy, so that in the context of the green and digital transition, we can achieve the goals set out, leaving no one behind. How can the municipalities and regions contribute to the flourishing of ecosystems that promote an economy that works for people and for the planet, as advocated by the European Green Pact, and what is the role that is expected and demanded by citizens? Good morning. Thank you very much. I would like to start by thanking the invitation to be here, to greet all those that are with us. I would like to greet, for instance, the Mayor of Cascais, Carlos Ferreira, and all the work that he has done in this area. Minister Ana Mendes Godinho, also for her commitment to social innovation, and more recently, very recently, in fact, last week, to the introduction of social innovation in cooperation agreements with Social Security. I don't know whether she mentioned that here today, but I believe this is the good news. Thank you very much, Anna, for being the moderator for this session, and I'd like to greet all the other members of the panel, Mikhail and Philip from Canada. I think we are together for a good cause. This is what I want to say. To kick off, we are here together for a good cause, and these are the moments that we feel, our work and our interventions are worthwhile. When we speak about social economy, and now going into Anna's question, this is something we've been speaking about, but it's very important to say that social economy is something that resulted from, social innovation projects that responded to specific social needs, housing, for instance, things that the market could not provide a response to. And we tried to get specific responses that were not the traditional ones from the market and from the public sector, and that brought together, this common attitude for housing, and then other projects started. And what Anna said is very important, and this is something that we discuss on a daily basis at this Parliament. We have transitions that are very demanding. They will not be very easy to do. The green is not always that very nice thing when we look at nature. This transition has costs. Certain systems of energy that we no longer use, and we start using others. Different consumes. The life of products, of certain products, will be extended. The attempt that the machines that we have at home can have an extended life, and most likely this will lead to a reduction in the production of new products, and also to the creation of maintenance jobs. But this transition requires people to change their professional context, even change profession, and even the place where they live, because they no longer find work in one place, and they will need to move to find work. So we need to have social responses. Otherwise, the topics that we leave behind will most certainly opposed to transition itself. And we've seen how this has happened recently when the prices of fuels went up due to the increase of the carbon rate, for instance. So we have lots of reasons to have more social innovation, to invest in social innovation. And some of them are those that I mentioned. People may say, well, we have social responses that allow us to manage differentiation. Now, we'll certainly continue to have that. We are discussing, for instance, the minimum European wage, but we do not have answers for everything. We know that many social situations that are serious, homeless people, for instance, here in Brussels. Every day here in Brussels, I see people that sleep in the streets, that live in the streets, and this is a rich city, Brussels. And I'm speaking of the neighborhood of European institutions, for instance. So we need to try out new answers in the cases where the current responses, the responses that we have right now, have not worked. And I would like to mention several cases. We have several projects, namely Port Sentir, that is actually going along That way, we have people that lose their jobs and that already have an advanced age, and we need to test new ways of responding to their situations. And we have new problems, digital skills, for instance. Of course, digital transition will create lots of new jobs, but digital skills, the skills that are required for new jobs are not necessarily those that people that lost their old jobs had. So they need to acquire new skills, and we can all acquire them. But in order to do that, we need to invest right now. We needed to invest yesterday, but today we need to invest a lot in a committed manner. We need to attract people to this need of obtaining new skills, acquiring new skills. The challenges of active aging, mental health, the lack of balance between professional life and family life, and this crisis, how women are overloaded with duties regarding care, but we have not yet found an answer to this. We in Portugal, we've been pioneer in Europe in the project that Filipa Almeida has already presented to us today here, which is called Portugal Social Innovation. And finally, we need to use the potential of new entrepreneurs, of established companies that want to have a social impact via their activity. And this is something that is more permanent among companies. They want to mobilize investment so that they have a social impact, broadly speaking. And obviously, this also includes environmental issues. This is the biggest challenge. And with whom can we work in order to bring this about? I've mentioned partnerships. This is very important, and to detect and to be able to find answers to this and to actually try out solutions, we need to have proximity governments. We can't do this with European institutions. They are very important, naturally, to provide means, funding. They are very important to create networks, to scale projects, to replicate good practices. But until we do that, the initiative must happen at a local must happen locally. It means at a regional basis. It means at a level of municipalities in the case of Portugal. And it's not by chance that municipalities in Portugal have been so far the main or one of the main partners. We also have companies in social innovation projects. It's not by chance that municipalities decided to motivate themselves and to commit themselves in so many social innovation projects and many other projects where partnerships are carried out, happen at municipal level, because we're speaking about proximity governments. They see areas where there are no solutions, and this is why I feel that any project that tries to scale, to incentivize and develop more social innovation in order to reinforce social economy. It's, of course, very good to have innovative processes, but they will only be successful if they are actually able to consolidate. And this calls for a strong municipal commitment and regional, if we see that more than that we can achieve a better success at multi-municipal level, for instance, and if we create incubators for companies. But I feel very strong for this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria Manuel, for the insights you gave us and to help us have a comprehensive reading regarding the impacts of the transitions that are taking place and which need investment on social innovation that is able to reply to endemic emerging projects, and which also require governance models that are closer to the citizens. I will now give the floor to Mikhail Lamisaga. He has a deep knowledge about the grammar of the European institutions and an experience that is enriched by work in the private sector. Since the beginning of this year, he is the Regional Minister for Economic and Business Development in the government of Navarre. He is a member of the Committee of the Regions since 2016, being the rapporteur of 3 opinions which I consider particularly relevant. These reports, namely smart specialization, strategies and interregional cooperation, strategies for resilience, inclusive and sustainable growth by strengthening innovation in Europe's regions, and more recently, the Committee of the Regions report on the action plan for the social economy that concurred the contribution of the European social economy, the social economy Europe, of which cases is part. This document brings together a set of policy recommendations and concrete proposals. And therefore, Miguel, can you please ask us how does the Committee of the Regions view and position itself according to the action plan for the social economy, and what is the role given to the regions? What are the big challenges and changes that are necessary? So what do you think that these transformations and results will be?
Okay, thanks a lot. I hope you can hear me well. Yes, so no, first of all, thanks a lot for the presentation. And yes, indeed, 2nd of July, the Committee of the Regions adopted an opinion on the next action plan for social economy that is going to be adopted by the European Commission. As far as we know, the European Parliament is taking also a resolution on that for autumn. So, but first of all, I mean, let me just read some small sentences. I mean, imagine respect for human dignity and promotion of well-being of its people. Democracy, decisions are taken as openly as possible, as closely as possible to the citizen. Equality, pluralism, non-discrimination, solidarity. I'm just reading what is already written in the Treaty of the European Union in its articles 1, 2, or 3. If you read these articles, you are reading what is the social economy about. I mean, social economy is about values. This is the main word, is the key word, is values. So we cannot understand social economy without these values. Those values that, by the other hand, are commonly shared by almost all the Europeans. So in our case, I think this is very relevant introduction, because we do understand social economy, of course, in order to solve those issues that perhaps society cannot cover, or institutions, but it's not only about that. It's also a way of doing business, respecting these values. So you can do regular business, you can do business competing with the regular market, you can have an industry competing in the automotive sector, in renewables, in the component side, whatever, respecting these values. And this is our main vision of the social economy. I'm representing a region of Navarre, who is in the north part of the Iberian Peninsula. At this moment, you see behind my window 16 degrees and raining, so there are big differences also in weather. But what I mean is that for us, the industry sector represents 1/3 of our economy. we're a very industrial region. And 2016, while we were drafting our smart specialization strategy, we really saw that we did have relevant industrial actors in our region. So we do have companies of near 1,000 employees that are cooperatives, and they are competing in the agro-food industry, they are competing in the automotive industry, and they are competing in the renewables industry. So their clients are groups as Volkswagen, Siemens, or whatever other big groups. So they are competing in the regular market, but internally, they are respecting the social economy values. Internally, they have their democracy in order to make big decisions of the company. They have this equality, they have solidarity. So the people is is more important than the capital. But they are competing, they are doing this. And this is linked to something that we were really worried about, I think not only in Navarra, it's all over Europe. It's about companies, local companies, that you help them to create. You help them when they are in the stage of a startup. They grow. They really get bigger and get more employment and more regions for your region. And usually happens, big multinational comes and they just take it. So you lose this territoriality of many of your companies that you have seen as a government growing and growing for some many years, and at the end they just you lose this direct attach to the territory. This doesn't happen with social economy companies. Social economic companies, they have big roots in your territory. So it's this word territoriality. So it's because we decided in 2016 to include social economy in our smart specialization strategy. And we are including it in order as a vision of our business development of the region. This is very important. I mean, one of the main pillars that we see for social economy is the business development of Navarra in the future. And being included in a smart specialization strategy, of course, means that we have a special budget lines for social economy. We do have some special tax lines also for social economy. And of course, we do have an open and continuous dialogue, right, with the sector. We are drafting now the second social economy regional plan for 2021-24. So values, social economy is also about industry, and it's very important to focus on this territoriality because this has given us the idea to include it in our regional strategy of business development in the future. So having all these components, of course, also making clear that social economy is also to solve issues that society perhaps is not covering. So it's also this component, that is industry, and also this more social innovation component. We have drafted this opinion in the Committee of the Regions, establishing these main pillars. But what we are asking for this action plan, European Action Plan for Social Economy, that the European Commission is going to publish in autumn this year. So first of all, I mean, we are asking for more dissemination of the social economy. The social economy is not well known in many parts of Europe. And even more, the idea that we may have internally of social economy, it's quite diverse in different regions. So first of all, we include this dissemination. It's more developed than that, but in these 10 minutes, I mean, you can read the opinion, but dissemination is very important. So we really celebrate that the European Commission has decided to draft this action plan of social economy, but because only by the title, of course, the content, that will contribute to disseminate the idea of what social economy is. Secondly, very linked to the dissemination, we need training, and it's something that has been very well already explained by the President speaker. We need training First of all, you need to disseminate, to communicate what social economy is about. But of course, you need to train people in order to be sure that you can have entrepreneurship. You can have entrepreneurs that they may develop their businesses, their ideas, including social economy values in their companies. So this is, and of course, skills as well. It's not only about entrepreneurship, it's also about skills. This is something that we also celebrate because the skills agenda of the European Union already includes social economy in the pillar of the entrepreneurship. So this is something that the European Union is giving some very good steps regarding social economy. But training is about the skills, is about entrepreneurship. Another point is to be sure that the interregional cooperation is well established and helped. You have mentioned in the introduction the Social Economy Europe, or REVES. There are extraordinary networks that works thanks to many regions and other stakeholders all over Europe. But we really need to foster the interregional collaboration among the different regions. And in 2018, since 2018, Navarra is leading a social economy partnership that is focusing on smart specialization. It's a social economy thematic partnership in order to, first of all, to get in touch with another 7 regions that they do have social economy as on the top of the agenda on their regional strategies, but also in order to create these European value chains, because we can do a great job developing social economy in our regions, but we need to put in contact this with other European realities. This is what we call this social economy value chains, and why not? The idea will be to draft clusters, to create European level clusters. And of course, because this will also help to the social economy, local social economy actors to reach this necessary internationalization of the different business and so on. So in this particular opinion, I mean, what we are asking is, of course, direct participation in different networks like HECES, for instance, that is managed by the European Commission, among many others. Of course, by the way, I needed to say that we have included a point in which we are calling the European Commission to select a European capital of social economy every single year, in order also to foster this interregional cooperation and also to foster this dissemination, this communication about the European social economy. So, just summarizing, values is the key issue of social economy. We are talking about values. It's how to make business that's respecting some values that, by the other hand, are well commonly shared by all of us. Therefore, social economy is also about industry. It's very important word, I mean, to be attached to social economy. You can create industry respecting social economy values that may compete with the regular market. Third point is territoriality. Social economy will never deslocalize. They will be always attached to your territory, something that is very important as an economic development of your territory. And fourth point is that we are really, really happy to see, I mean, we really congratulate the European Commission that has taken this decision of drafting this European social economy action plan. And for this, what we are asking is clear policies of dissemination, training, interregional cooperation. And I haven't mentioned in my speech, but of course, funding, that is really clear funding for social economy sector. And many other things that are included in the report, but it will be too long to explain all of them. So thanks a lot for this. I'll keep for possible questions. Thanks a lot and for the invitation to Cascais.
Muito obrigada, Mikhail, por...
Thank you very much, Mikhail, for actually telling us that social economy is an approach that is anchored in a framework of values, it should be considered in a relational approach as a strategic pillar of territorial development. And thank you very much for the very clear and objective summary that you made, and that actually lists an agenda of priority for the promotion of local and regional ecosystems that are favorable to social economy. One of the recommendations that is included in the opinion of the Committee of the Regions on the European Social Economy Plan calls precisely for the European Commission to promote socially responsible public procurement as a key strategic tool to increase transparency in public contracts, so as to foster the participation of different economic actors and responsible business practices, such as those embodied by the social economy. And this, I would say, a very good cue to actually listen to what Philip Tepper has to say. He has a multifaceted background. For several years, he has been an expert coordinator in the local governments for sustainability network, a global platform bringing together more than 2,500 municipalities and regions committed to sustainable urban development. Philip has dedicated himself to a matter of unequivocal relevance, sustainable public procurement, which by applying social and environmental clauses is an indispensable tool in ensuring a fair and socially equitable transition and social inclusion, and ensuring better conditions for people with disabilities or from disadvantaged backgrounds, taking into consideration all the capital of thought and knowledge produced on socially and environmentally responsible procurement. We would like to know what challenges that you consider, Philip, what challenges municipalities and regions face in this field, which good practices that have already been validated within this vast network can be incorporated and disseminated. And in your perspective, Philip, what kind of changes, legal changes, organizational changes, and governance challenges should we have?
Thank you so much, Anna, for the kind introduction and for the kind invite to present today here. Thank you also to the host, Cascais, an ICLE member, strong ICLE member since many, many years. So thanks, Carlos Correa, for making this possible. And also thanks to Nicolas Schmidt, the commissioner who spoke earlier and clearly emphasized the role of public procurement. It's a pleasure to speak today and to conclude a bit on the session about the local dimension and what is done and what still needs to be done. I will share some slides now. If you just could give me a feedback if this works. Can you see the slides? It works great, lovely. So I will talk about socially responsible public procurement in practice, about some resources and support, and I'm from ICLE. We are, as said, a network of more than 2,500 governments worldwide, and we started working on the topic of sustainable public procurement 25 years ago. 25 years ago, when you were talking about socially responsible public procurement to anybody, they would say, illegal, don't do it, don't touch it. Lawyers would say no. This changed dramatically, and I'm very pleased about all the support from Commission services, from leading governments, cities, regions that drove this topic throughout the last decades. It's now a standard measure, and if you don't do it, then you're lagging behind. That's a simple fact. If you do not take into account anything related to green aspects of durability or longevity, about climate change mitigation impacts, yes, you lag behind, basically, simply. Yeah, it's out of date what you're doing, right? Doesn't work anymore. And the same more and more goes in the field of social responsibility. And I will tell you a bit what is done, what has been done, and what still needs to be done. Great. This is a definition from the European Commission. Some recently published EU Buying Social Guide. It's only a couple of weeks old, so I strongly recommend you to take a reading of this guide. It provides how to do it in a legally matter, and to answer one of your questions, Anna, no need for any further legal changes here. We have procurement directives from 2014 that allow you to do everything you want to do. Just do it. And how to do it? This guide helps you. It clearly redefines the scope, what you can do. It clearly provides you with criteria that everybody always wants to have, something like a blueprint, right? And it clearly provides you with examples. And it comes with this definition about SRPP is about achieving positive social outcomes. So we really have, again, and I really value the speakers before and saying values. It's about values. It's not about the lowest price. This is maybe a value in itself, but it's about more than just price. It's about so many different aspects, diversity in public contracts that can happen. And it can be included and targeted to a large number of people. Yeah, whether the users of the public services, those involved in the production or delivery, or those working in mining sector, for instance. Yeah, this is all possible with our approach. And this makes it crucial that public authorities do take action and take on the possibilities they have via the public procurement regimes. It's at their discretion to include social clauses in tenders, and we strongly encourage you to consider and do it. It means, for instance, that you can promote employment opportunities, long-term unemployed, disadvantaged people, social inclusion aspects there, accessibility and design for all when we're talking about construction and buildings, ethical trade, including human rights and decent work, and many, many, many more. Of course, the core element of social economy you're talking today at the conference is at the heart of what we can achieve. We have many kind of articles in the procurement directives specifically reflecting the importance on social economy. And as you will see in a couple of seconds, they are already taken on by the public authorities across Europe. I would like to guide you also to official European Commission sources. If you are interested in more, finding out more, this is a website, DigiGrow, where you find everything about social procurement, including guides and also case studies. If you're keen to explore even more, then those two websites might be a starting point for you to get acquainted to the stories that, of course, due to time limits today, I cannot tell you all. But we have more than 200 stories to tell. And that's a good news about socially responsible public procurement, that is really taken off and people do share their stories. They do not hide, and they even discover that this is a story about social economy or social responsibility that they were not so much aware, maybe because of what standard practice was always done. So it's really great to see this happening. And we also set up a network there that's called the Procure Plus European Sustainable Procurement Network, where we have three main principles. We do connect those different actors. So I really see that this has a local, regional strength of implementation. What happens in one region might be, with a little bit of adaptation, happen in another region. But this only may happen if you know from each other. So this connection, we connect those procurers from across Europe. Saying so, Torres Vedras is a participant in their case, not yet. But this basically advertisement aside, we connect, exchange, and act, and also we do together basically. What do you really lack? Okay, you lack a criteria set. What is needed? Okay, what is the funding sources? Okay, what is the legal complaints that you got from your legal officer? Okay, that's addressed like this, and we work together on this in the network. So this network, together with AI law, equally teamed up and developed for the European Commission case studies. That's 71 good practice cases making socially responsible public procurement work. It got published earlier this year. It's a trending publication on the European Commission servers. That means something, so it's quite well received. And it comes with stories and contact details The most important part is at the end of each case study. If you somehow find it interesting, you just approach the person there. Yeah. You just run an email to them, or pick up the phone, whatever, contact details. That's the most important part in there. So, but I could already stop there because the rest you can read there. But for me, it was a very interesting exercise to be in charge of the main publisher for this publication. That we have 22 member states and 5 other countries from across the world, including Canada, but also Argentina, Korea, Japan. So many countries from Europe and across the world that tell stories that can be replicated, that have the potential to be replicated. Be it now, as you see here, to establishing a network of facilitators to support the employment of disadvantaged persons, or facilities management, workwear, of course, cleaning contracts. We have stories according to sectors, according to policies. These are short, but of course, this is in the under 250 pages communication. So you pick the fruits that you want to read. I highly recommend you. And it was such a great experience to really see that this has been taken on by so many member states in Europe. Of course, including Portugal, of course, including Spain. I mean, come on. I mean, you're at the forefront of those developments, but also some niche elements in there. So, for instance, Buenos Aires, I didn't know before that gender equity was basically very high on the agenda there. It's a core topic at this very moment, and very important to take this on and to discuss this in the field of social economy too. I will quickly run through 3 examples, if time permits. So one is city of Ortigny, Louvain-la-Neuve. So hopefully no French speakers are there, and hopefully your translator got it right here, right? So preparation and delivery of healthy and sustainable school meals is the topic there. And you can see already how we work at ICLEBET. We work in an integrated matter. So it's not only the social dimension, but we attach it to the economic impacts that previously have been mentioned. We're talking here about business, right? Yeah, we're talking here about business, about making money, of course, in a different way than somebody else. But this is an important aspect. We're talking about environmentally friendly things. So we don't want to support something in a social way that hurts the environment on the other hand. So not to support some, for instance, so intensive agriculture. Yeah, right. Yeah, that basically the soil is dead afterwards and you are happy workers, but that's it. So no, it's integrated stories, right? And this is one of them. School meals, healthy one, food waste monitoring system, social growth encouraging internships, long-term unemployed, packaging waste reduction, right? Drastic reduction in food waste achieved, retaining people in the region, right? Again, so basically local employment creation for local SMEs. And it was really a competition to win this contract. It was really not just one offer, but they received many offers. That was so great to see that the municipality was in a prime situation to pick the best out of a great, basically, basket. And this shows that in this region, Belgium, yeah, right? Fair enough. So, well, they've learned the lessons, yeah, right? So they're doing this great. Copenhagen, we take a look here into construction sector. It's important to pay attention to the wage structures, to the security, health and safety aspects there, to the way people are hired and fired, yeah, to the level playing field. So they set up a monitoring unit, and this is linked strongly to the CSI aspects they are working on to avoid social dumping. And this was done successfully and is now a model that is rolled out also in other regions in Denmark. Last but not least, Catalan Association of Local Authorities, they took this extra step of thinking, okay, yes, I have something to do with my social economy in a local way, but what is the global impact? What's the supply chain? They were looking at the supply chain of ICT. I don't know if you know that a laptop consists of more than 1,000 individual parts, but it's hard to track every component and raw material and things like those. So very huge global supply chain. They said, we have to start. So we have to ask, where does this come from? And they asked also, okay, who can support us there? So they teamed up with a watchdog organization called Electronics Watch to follow up with the contracts during contract management. So there's a clear contract management point. To those of you familiar with public procurement, there's a lot of emphasis done in the preparation and the tender itself, but in many times they miss out on staff capacity and knowledge how to run actually the actual contract management. And that is very important when it comes to compliance checks and the aspects of socially responsible public procurement in general. This is my last slide. And there's just one word to say. So we are a global organization. We also have global stories, and it's the time still of COVID-19. Yeah, we are not here post-pandemic. We are still during this pandemic, and this has, of course, an impact. And to me, it means strategic public procurement should play a much bigger role in the future to avoid certain things that did happen in the past years of shortages of supply, and also about buys that just for the short term, right? So not very sustainable in a way. We do hear those stories from all our offices, sometimes more from the production side, sometimes more from the consumption side, sometimes from both. And I would like to encourage you all to also, when talking about social economy, think about the social economy also worldwide, right? And the impacts that it creates. Thank you very much. And I stay there for your attention and questions.
Muito obrigada, Philip, pela sua intervenção, pelos exemplos.
Thank you very much, Philip, for your intervention, for the concrete examples that you've shared with us, and for the set of resources that you have been bringing together with different stories from different areas in the world, which shows how important it is to cooperate without borders. Thank you so much. We are almost finishing our session, but nevertheless, I would like to ask a final question to each one of the participants. I would like to start by Philip Tepper, and I would like to ask you very briefly to tell us or to share with us what are, in your perspective, the positive impacts that the Play network can leave in the different areas or territories where you are acting. What would be the footprint, the positive effects of your work in the different countries where you are working? Thank you.
I mean, the best thing would be that you ask our members to do this. So that's a question to Cascais. But now, a couple of anecdotes maybe. We have a network of procurers, right? I mentioned Procure Plus, and we have annual gatherings, meetings, and pre-pandemic, basically, we had one meeting once upon a time in Rome. So at a famous atrium, nice building and everything, and we were 100 people there, mostly procurers, some experts, some researchers, some journalists. So this meeting was for public procurers to talk about their failures. Yeah. So we provided a room that they could openly discuss in a nice atmosphere about their failures, what did not work, and get ideas what they could do next time. So typical failure, I didn't get any offer. I was too high criteria. Another answer is then, okay, do some more early market engagement. And the question is, oh, but this is not legal. No, it's legal. I've done it here. I have the blueprint and so on. These type of exchange does happen in our networks. It does not necessarily happen basically at your office building. It may. So these type of aspects do create added value, and it's about thinking out of your normal regimes, right? A bit about your different cultures. So the people that were there discussing these failures at the table, one came from the Netherlands, the other one from Spain, and the third person was from Oslo. And these type of different personality cultures that enrich so much our work here. And that I would like to emphasize there. So basically we support diversity here with play, right? And this is again for our topic of social economy, so important to respect also the diversity, the differences there, and say, okay, lovely. What do we have in common? Where do we go together? What do we do completely different, but have a laugh about in 1 year when you have to tell your failure and I have my success? So that's a little bit of an anecdote there. Globally seen, of course, we have those different perspectives, like I mentioned there, that you come from the more global south, right? Where different challenges are there, for instance, the financiation. So from how to finance certain aspects, definitely. If you do not have so much of a tax income from you, how do we have financings? So there are creative models of financing social economy aspects, crowdfunding, for instance, do play a major role. And this sometimes provides a bit of a choke in our network, right? Because we were talking about, you can do this easily. We have laws, we have funding, we have an action plan, and so on. Yeah, it's not the same in all the world, and that's what enriches our world to find the solutions for different regions.
Thank you. Muito obrigada, Philip.
Thank you very much, Philip. I would like to give the floor now to Mikhail, trying to ask him very briefly, and according to what Philip just said, the principle of diversity, unity in diversity, which is kind of a motto of the European project. So could you please comment on this very briefly, sharing with us what, in your perspective, can be the contribution of social economy to the problem of regional inequalities, for example, especially ensuring that rural communities can be more involved and better involved. It's a rather complex question, I can say. I agree with you on that, but please be as brief as possible.
Okay. Yeah, it won't be easy to answer shortly, but well, I will try. I will be back of this word in territoriality. When we say that social economy has big roots in the regions, I mean this is clear that we are speaking about an economy that also is also the best mechanism for the territorial cohesion. Thanks to our interregional cooperation, I mean, we created 4 years ago our social innovation unit in Navarra, and one of its main activities is to go to less populated villages or even valleys that we do have in our territory, in order to try to foster. We have a proper budget allocated for that. And this is something, but it's something also that dissemination, communication, training, when I was referring to that, is something very clear. I mean, it's the people of every single territory. They need to know that nobody is going to make gifts. So every single of us, I mean, we need to move ourselves. We need to have the initiative to become entrepreneurs when it's really needed. And this is what social economy is about. I think it's easier to link this activation of the society with the social economy values.
Muito obrigada, Mikhail, pela sua reflexão.
Thank you very much, Mikhail. We are going to close our session talking about the future, and I would like to give the floor now to Maria Manuela Leyton Marques to talk about a little bit about the conference on the future of Europe. So very briefly, what can European people expect from this conference, and what are the challenges that will be on the agenda? Thank you very much, and I want to be very brief, but I would like to comment on what Philip said. I would like to congratulate both speakers for their participation here. But the idea of having public procurement bearing in mind different types of objectives and values such as gender equality and others. So if we can use European funds to give a boost to these type of companies would be amazing. So Philip, count on us to support this cause, which is extremely important. It's not enough to have it on the law. We need to make it very concrete and implement things in the real life, in the life of real people. Regarding the conference, I think that there are two main objectives. First, changes at the institutional level, such as on health policies with a European component. The need for this was very visible with the COVID crisis. Reinforcing the European Parliament and the initiatives it can develop. And also another important area is the idea of fostering or improving the interaction with citizens from two different perspectives. First of all, finding mechanisms to take the priorities of the citizens to be more easily transferred into legislative initiatives and other European policies. And on the other hand, also improve the participation and involvement of citizens in policy development at European level by improving public consultation, because they focus quite a lot, quite often on professionals, associations, some lobbies around the institutions who participate, and they should continue to do so, but we need to have more enlarging consultations involving more common citizens, municipalities, local authorities, improving the entire consultation. And we know that this is not easy. It involves a mentality shift so that Europe can be closer to citizens. And this has a lot to do with language as well. We use lots of acronyms and abbreviations, and we all understand each other, but common citizens do not. We should not use this type of language. We need to be as clear as possible so that people, common people, are able to understand what we are doing in Europe. And I've been in a meeting very recently, and we debated, for example, indemnizations or indemnities for people who see their flights cancelled, for example, and how they can have their money back because many flights were cancelled due to the pandemic, and we know that many people suffered quite a lot from this. So these are the type of further developments that we should invest much more of our time and debates on. And we need to provide more and better innovative responses to our citizens to solve problems that are so serious for our citizens in Europe. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you very much for being so brief. I thank our speakers. To conclude, I would like to thank on behalf of the organization to our three guests who created a real ecology of ideas, I would say. It's very clear from our talk today that we need to establish a strategic link between the Green Deal and the Action Plan for Social Economy. And the role of social economy was in fact fostered and defended here, and it is the best form to engage local communities in the transition process that is underway, and so that we can have better jobs for people to help solve the problems of common people. Only by fostering their involvement and participation in the transition processes that are undergoing is the only way. And of course, we know that we need a good dialogue between different levels of our institutions with the citizens, because that is the only way that we will be able to maximize the benefits, and it's the best way to ensure that the resources can reach our citizens. We need collective entrepreneurship here, and we need to have more resilient communities that will ensure the future of Europe, giving a new statement to the affirmation that Europe is green, open, plural, and social. Thank you.
Muito obrigado. Faremos agora uma pausa para almoço. Os trabalhos serão retomados às 14h30 com o painel Transição Verde e Digital na Economia Social. Obrigado, bom almoço.